How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? My name is RuffledRowlit, and we got ourselves some Pokemon news as well as Nintendo news today, so let's get started right away. Starting things off, guys, we have this officially has been announced. Yes, there is a Nintendo Direct, as was already said by Nate the Hate, or as he said already like last month in January. A new Nintendo Direct partner showcase. So yes, it is a partner one, which explanation for you guys. That means that it's not really going to be a lot of, you know, Nintendo first-party titles, right? This is specifically for partners, which could be anyone. It could be anything from EA to Activision to Mojang to literally anyone. But that also includes companies that, you know, they work maybe with Nintendo on certain games or for Nintendo, but they don't necessarily, you know, they're not owned by Nintendo per se. Like, I think, what do you call it? Really anything like Platinum Games and stuff like that, Bandai Namco, like they can be working on games that are, you know, technically speaking, you know, I guess commissioned almost or given to them, you know, licensed out to them to be created from Nintendo. So just keep that in mind. It's just something I wanted to point out. But yes, it's going to be tomorrow, February the 5th. It's going to be roughly 30 minutes in length. It's going to be about the upcoming Nintendo Switch 2 and Switch games. So there will be some Switch 1 games, which is interesting because you'd be thinking they'd be trying to lean as much as possible into, you know, specifically the Switch 2 right now to get as many sales as possible. And we will talk about the sales of the Switch 2 because they have a sales update and apparently it's doing well according to what they're reporting. So we'll have to wait and see in that. But yeah, turns out though that this is going to be tomorrow. And like I said, 30 minutes. So it's going to be a pretty lengthy one. We will be streaming the entire thing tomorrow in case you guys want to jump by and watch. You know, I'll be live. You know, streaming the entire thing. Gonna drop a like on that real quick. So yeah, it'll be tomorrow. But that was the first thing though. So we do have a Nintendo Direct. It's confirmed in terms of what we can expect to see there. Like I just said, it's mostly going to just be a variety of essentially, you know, games from partners, right? That's the big thing you have to know. It's just a bunch of games from partners. And it's not really going to be much in terms of Pokemon or stuff like that. Not on this day, particularly tomorrow. I'll still be streaming it, but it won't be anything about Pokemon on day. However, we do have Pokemon Day coming up this month too, at the end of the month, which, I mean, hey, we're basically just like, you know, what, 24 days away, give or take, maybe 23 even, which is kind of crazy. So keep that in mind, but we do have more stuff to talk about. So let's just jump over to that real quick, which is going to be this right here. Apparently, to celebrate the 30 years of Pokemon, the Pokemon Company is going to be releasing a special video that's going to debut during the Super Bowl on February 8th. Now, I don't watch the Super Bowl. I don't get the deal with it. I don't know. The only thing I'm happy about is because the Super Bowl is coming out, they're actually going to be releasing Night of the Seven Kingdoms episode 4 early, which is what makes me happy because I couldn't care less. I don't watch this sport, but I do know a lot of Americans do. So, whatever, you know, that's besides the point. They are, though, doing some sort of Pokemon promotion. I don't really know what that's going to be. Is it going to be revealing actually something substantial? Or is it just going to be something insignificant? Is it just going to be like somebody coming on stage and singing? I mean, we see a Jigglypuff. And we do know that the American sports are, well, like 10% sport and 90% commercial, 80% commercials, and then another 10% of, you know, I don't know, halftime shows or some shit like that. But we can see a Jigglypuff, so I'm wondering if it's going to be some sort of performance, like some kind of performance to celebrate it. I don't know. I'm very curious what that's going to be. And dude, I really wonder if it is something like massive. When I say massive, I'm not saying like some, you know, giant, you know, incredible, you know, reveal or whatever. But if it is like an actual, like, I don't know, release of a product or something through this, it'd be so funny because if it's something that's exclusive to this place, that's going to be like, you know, the first time I think where, I guess grifters and or scalpers will not be able to get their hands on it quickly if it's something at, you know, the Super Bowl itself, which I don't think so, right? I don't think they sell exclusive stuff there or anything like that. Again, I've never been to an American sport, so I don't know how they function, but it's besides the point. Either way, that is happening, so we do have that as a sort of confirmed thing that there's going to be something, right? We don't know what that thing is, but there is something, so I'll leave that at that and move on to the next thing, which is this rumor post. Now, I'm sorry for my face cam blocking it here, but I will sort of move it just so you guys can read it yourself if you want to, if you don't want to listen to me yap. But what it says, though, is Gen 10 is Sky and Sea. You complete island tasks, and then you battle for the title of the strongest Pokemon in, the strongest in the region, not the Pokemon. There's a Pokemon League. It's all big island-to-island adventures with quests, and you can catch Pokemon and make people happy, building your status and make friends. The starters are a hedgehog, a cow, and a cat with spots. I don't know, dog. I'm gonna put my hands up and just say I don't think this one's real. It's just a rumor, so, you know, it is what it is. Again, we shouldn't be taking these things too seriously anyways, but I don't know. This one in particular, it just doesn't sound like anything like, you know, believable. But again, I digress. Let's move over to one of the big things which came out the other day, which I told you guys I was waiting for this. But apparently, we now have the official sales numbers of the Nintendo Switch 2 as well as the Pokemon games and stuff like that, like Legends ZA. So here's what they're talking about. Basically, Nintendo Switch 2 now sits at 17.37 million units sold as of December 31st, 2025. Nintendo Switch is sitting at 155.37 million units. Mario Kart World, I'm guessing they said World twice here, is at 14 million. And then Donkey Kong Bonanza is at 4.25 million. Which is a substantial amount of sales specifically for Mario Kart World, which I'm assuming a lot of that is just purely like the reason I got it was just because there's nothing else for it at the time, right? Like keep in mind, at the time, there was nothing. Donkey Kong Bonanza, I don't think was even out when the Switch 2 dropped, right? Like it was like a month or two afterwards, if I remember correctly. But it's interesting to see, though, that it only sold about 4.25 million copies, which is still substantial and decent, but it is far below the close, you know, like, I guess, close second best-selling game so far on the Switch 2, which is Legend of Zelda. Sorry, not Legend of Zelda. The Legend ZA Nintendo Switch 2 edition. I guess it gets outsold slightly by Donkey Kong Bonanza since they're not counting, for Switch 2, they're not counting the Switch 1 sales, which is interesting. But it's still cool, though, to see that 3.89 million copies of Legends ZA sold on the Switch 2, which is, it is a substantial amount, okay? It is a very substantial amount. And this is where, like, when I spoke about this last time, I said, like, I am surprised that more people haven't bought this game on the Switch 1. Like, I'm very, very shocked that more people haven't picked it up. And this is where we have a bit of an update in regards to exactly that. So, Cerebi update. As of December 31st, 2025, Pokémon Legends ZA has sold 12.3 million units, and 8.41 million of those are on the Switch 1, 3.89 million of those are on the Switch 2, which, let's break this down, right? So out of 17 million people who own a Switch 2 now, 3.89 million of them bought it on the Switch 2, which is still a substantial amount. That's, you know, a big chunk of people, because not everybody who buys a Switch 2 is going to be a Pokemon fan necessarily, right? And a lot of people weren't necessarily inclined to go buy a Switch 2. Like, listen, you have to still think about it. Like, 12 million people is a lot. Like, it is a lot, okay? Like, in the grand scheme of things, that's a lot of people. But then you also realize how big the planet is, and, like, you gotta remember, like, Pokemon is the biggest, like, media franchise, which I swear this, like, sentence is said so many times, it's starting to get annoying, like, repeating it. But it is a massive franchise. It is everywhere. It's like your grandma knows who Pikachu is, you know? She knows, like, the Pikachu, the little yellow fella, you know? Like, what I'm trying to get at is mostly just this thing of, this is still substantial amounts. However, these sales are a little bit confusing to me. I'm assuming that the large chunk of people who bought this on the Switch 2 are people who just simply, well, got a Switch 2 and are planning to buy Pokemon anyways, right? Rather than just people picking it up because, hey, you know, I might as well because I got nothing else to play. I really doubt that would be the reasoning, because I'm pretty sure you could get the game cheaper for the Switch 1, right? So unless you just really wanted the 60 FPS like upgrade, which is like what, $10, which I think is ridiculous that they even charge for like an upgrade, because you don't get anything besides like literally just pulling like a little lever and saying like, okay, yeah, now the game can run in 60 FPS, which is ridiculous in my opinion. But I digress. What I will say though is 8.41 million on the Switch 1 is still good. But it does surprise me a little bit. Like, the game sold decently. Let's not, like, underestimate this in any way or shape or form. But as of December 31st, it sold 12.3 million units, which is, like, what, 2 months, give or take, after release? Came out in October, so October, half of October, November, December. That's 2.5 months, give or take, right? They also do say it's worth noting that Nintendo breaks down sales for Switch 2 editions like this. So Switch 1 equals Switch 1. Switch 2 digital equals Switch 1. Wait, what? Switch 2 digital equals Switch 1, Switch 2 physical equals Switch 2, and Switch 2 upgrade does not get counted. That's weird. Like, that's really weird. What an interesting way of breaking it down. Why would they do that? That seems so odd. But I digress. It's not important. The important thing, though, is that this number isn't far behind something like Legends Arceus. I think it is slightly less than Legends Arceus, right? Like slightly less. And also something you have to keep in mind, right, is that Legends Arceus came out at a point where the Switch had already been out for 6 years, I think, at that point, right? Like, I think, as far as I remember, 6 or 5 years at that point. If we just go back, like, what was like 2022? Because 2019 Sword and Shield, 2020 Sword and Shield DLC, 2021 was BDSP, and then 2022 was when we got Legends Arceus at the start of that year, which was January. That's when the release was of the game. Was that like 15th of January? And then we had November for Gen 9, right? So we had those two games all at the same time. So what I'm trying to say here is, not to discount Legends ZA's like sales numbers, because it sold good. Like, at the end of the day, they won, okay? They made their money back like tenfold, if not even way more than that, right? Because like the game cost what, like 13, 15 million like actual US dollars to produce, and then it sold this amount. Like, if we just do a rough estimate here, just really rough estimate, if you sell, and again, this is rough estimate, not taking into account taxes and everything else that, you know, and that kind, but let's say you paid $60 for the game, which I know with the upgrade and stuff, it could be way more, but let's say you paid $60 on average, right? And the game sold 12.3 million copies. That comes out to $738 million dues that they made off of this one game, pushing $1 billion at that point, right? Like, that is so good, okay? The profit margins on Pokemon games are insane. Like, this is the equivalent of like the profit margin. I'll give you an example of like a movie like the Blair Witch Project, right? The Blair Witch Project was a movie that was made on practically no budget, right? They had no budget for that movie, but it made so much money, right? It went so popular, made so much money, making it into one of those like really successful movies, even though like when you look at the amount that it made compared to something like Titanic or whatever, it's insignificant, but compared to how much was spent on it, they made a much larger profit across the board. The same goes, I think, for Paranormal Activity. The first Paranormal Activity, dude just put in like, I think like he just sold a bunch of his stuff to be able to afford it, and guess what? One of the highest grossing like franchises, movie franchises, you know, ever made, specifically in that like you know, revenue versus money spent category, right? So the main thing I'm trying to say here is they still made their money. They still, you know, did their thing. So if you want to sit and shit on the game, which I will gladly do, I don't like this game, I'll be honest. I don't think ZA is a good game. I try not to speak too much about it, because for me, this thing is sort of in a weird place. I want people to be able to enjoy these games and have fun with them. But at the same time, I do want to be critical of stuff where I feel like I'm noticing issues with these games. But at the same time, I don't want to just come out and make a video just for the hell of it, just to, you know, I mean, I will probably make a video at some point reviewing the game and sort of giving my honest, you know, takes and opinions and everything about it. But I don't want to do it right now because I feel like everybody's done it. And I just don't want to try to, not grift, but I don't really want to try to sort of jump into that pile. I'd rather do it at a later point when everybody's kind of forgotten about it, go back, sort of re-examine it again and give my opinions on it. But looking at this right now, clearly people still seem to be interested in it. Though, I will say, it is a big difference, though, if you compare when this and Arceus came out. Keep in mind, Arceus came out, and this is the most important thing, okay, that differentiates these two games, and why I think Arceus was a better game, but also a better selling game and a better performing game across the board. And it has to do with a lot of things. One, Arceus came out a few months after. We're talking a month and a half after, actually about 2 months if you count the fact that November, like, is around like mid-November is when we got BDSP. But think about it, 2021, BDSP comes out in November. January 2022, literally like 2 months later, we get another Pokemon game. They're back to back, okay? BDSP, I think, sold better than Arceus, but still, you had back-to-back games, okay? And Arceus also, by the way, was then eclipsed literally a month later by the fact that we got an announcement for a next generation game, which kind of took everybody's focus away from Arceus, and everybody started thinking about, oh my lord, we got a new generation coming, right? And all the promotion went on to that. So what I'm trying to say is Arceus had everything going against it. It was a brand new type of game. It was them trying a whole new formula. It was pretty much stacked between two big things, which was a Gen 4 remake, something people have been waiting for the longest time, as well as another game announcement shortly after it came out, sort of taking away all that steam or potential that, you know, it had going from its launch. So what I'm trying to get at here is it had so much more going against it, whereas ZA, there was no game announced like before it. It had an entire, actually, oh my lord, had like what, 2 years essentially? Like it was announced in what, 2024? We got the announcement in 2024, the entirety of 2024 passes, and then almost the entirety of 2025, and then it comes out. So it had essentially 2 years worth of time to do promo, to get people excited, to do everything, right? They had the entire 2 years to get people excited, get people into it, get people, you know, hyped up, pre-orders, all this kind of stuff. And it still did slightly worse. And keep in mind, it came out at a good time. It came out in October, which is slightly before the Christmas period, the holiday period, you know, Black Friday and all that kind of stuff. It came out then, which you got to think about this. Really have to think about this. That is the sort of ideal time for them to release a game, because that is when people are going to go out, buy a new console, spend money for Christmas, things like that, right? It's the holidays. That's when people spend most amounts of money. So it still did good, but I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like it did still overall. Then again, I mean, they didn't invest a lot into it, so they still made a profit, but I still think it underperformed in comparison to into comparison to Arceus, because Arceus had a lot more going against it, okay? It had a lot more hurdles to sort of, you know, climb and pass by, whereas this game had everything set up. It was a perfect layup. All it had to do was hit the shot. And it sort of hit it, but it was one of those hits where it's like, oh yeah, it's kind of about to go in, but then the guy has to come up and, you know, like place that thing in. So my point is, I just feel that this game across the board did great in terms of numbers, in terms of revenue, but I do think that it didn't do as good as, just as well as Arceus, given the circumstances Arceus had in comparison. But that's, again, just me waffling a little bit. We do also see the sales of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, which at this point are sitting at 28 million sales. And then also we have the sales of Sword and Shield, which is at 27 million, making Scarlet and Violet still the second best-selling generation of Pokemon, I think, ever. I think it is like, what, red, blue, green, yellow, right? That, you know, Gen 1. I guess red and blue, right? Red, blue, and green. That's Gen 1. Bestsellers. And I think Generation... Yeah, I could be mistaken. I think Gen 8, right? So Sword and Shield comes in at second place. And then the third would be... Well, actually, no. Second place would be Scarlet and Violet. Third place is Sword and Shield. And then fourth place is Gen 2, right? Gold and Silver. And Crystal, I guess. So all I'm getting at, all I'm telling you is, well, I guess Crystal wouldn't be counted, but all I'm getting at here is that it's these things sell well. People are into it. People do like them. So I'm very curious to see how the next generation, how Gen 10 is going to do this year when it does come out, because, you know, we have about 17 million people who now own Switch 2s, which is a substantial amount. And this is kind of the same thing I was saying earlier. Sword and Shield, given when it came out, which was like, what, 2019? That's like 2 years after the release of the Switch 1, which the Switch 1, I think, did better overall by that point. I mean, again, we're still early days for the Switch 2. It's not even been out for a full year yet, so still early days to judge it and say if it's going to, you know, keep doing good, bad, etc. Especially because there is, you know, overall around the world, there's kind of a recession going on. People don't have as much money to throw around. There's all these things that are happening, which makes it harder for the average person. I mean, you can say whatever you want about, like, 17 million people bought the Switch 2. Yeah, those 17 million people, including myself in that group, were able to afford it at that time. At this point, if it came out now, I would not be buying it, because at the point when I got it, it was easy to do because, hey, it's sort of like a business expense, and thanks to a sponsor, I was able to get it, essentially. Otherwise, I wouldn't have really gotten it. And right now, if I had to go buy it, I wouldn't buy it. And I think a lot of people aren't able to go get it. The same people that have a Switch 1, like the 150 million people that do have a Switch 1, not all those 150 million or 140, 130, doesn't matter, are able to go out and buy one at this time. But again, it is what it is. I'm very curious to see what's going to be in tomorrow's Nintendo Direct. I'm very curious to see what we're going to see for Pokemon Day, because I'm excited, man. I do think Gen 10 could be good, because I'm hoping that now there are no excuses for hardware. They have the Switch 2. It should be strong enough and good enough to run, if it can run Cyberpunk, it can run Pokemon Generation 10. So there's no excuses in that. Especially, I think there's going to be a lot of, I think it's going to be really toxic with this game, especially because of Beast of Reincarnation, which is that new game that's being made by Game Freak, which looks graphically, like, to a lot of people, way ahead of any Pokemon game. That is going to cause some, you know, let's just call it drama, if we want to call that. It's going to cause some trouble in the community, I'm pretty sure. So just be prepared for the eventual, you know, fallout from when we do see Generation 10, and how people react to it. So yeah, that is pretty much it. Thank you all for watching. I'll be seeing you guys in the next video. Peace out and bye-bye, ladies and gentlemen.